Hello guys, Bogdan Bratis from SaaSpot here, and today we're going to learn what an audio interface is, how it functions, and how you can incorporate that device into your podcast workflow. Now, I've seen loads of YouTube tutorials about audio interfaces. However, not a lot describe exactly what an audio interface is from the perspective of a podcaster. One of the things that an audio interface solves is the quality of the audio and also the workflow. It gives you a lot of power when it comes to recording multiple sources and doing quite a lot of more advanced things. If you're a solo podcaster, maybe a USB microphone may be a better option for you. So if it's just you recording yourself, a USB microphone is basically a dynamic microphone or a condenser microphone coupled with an audio interface. And that's what the technology is all about. So they managed to put all that technology into one microphone, and that's what you get, right? So you don't need to worry about an audio interface at all. However, there's loads of advantages for having an audio interface instead, right? So we're gonna go through all the functions of an audio interface. I'm gonna be a little bit laid back. I'm not going to try to kind of like give you definitions that are into audio books and stuff like that. Even though I know them, I'm gonna try to kind of like explain them to you in a language that is easy to understand, right? Because most of you guys are just worried about getting the best podcast recordings, and you want to make sure that the people that you expose your podcast to, they listen to your podcast. And one of the key things you need to make sure that you have right is the audio. Without good audio, your podcast is not going to be listened to, and let's face it, this is the case. So before we get in all the features of an audio interface, let me tell you a little bit about its function, how it works. So I told you about USB microphones. USB microphones are simple. You just plug and play. That's it. You just plug your USB into the laptop, and sometimes they don't even need drivers and they just work. Now that's really, really convenient, especially if you're on the go or you want to record a solo podcast really, really quickly. However, for anything more complex, you might want to buy an audio interface. If you want to record multiple people, you need an audio interface. You cannot plug two USB microphones into a laptop. That is not possible. Forget about it. If you want to do that, you're just going to be set up for failure. So you need an audio interface that accepts multiple microphones, and then you connect that to the laptop. The audio interface, essentially what it does, it converts analog signal into digital signal that your computer can understand. Without that, it is impossible to plug an XLR microphone into a computer. Now, just so you kind of get the idea of the path the signal goes through, what happens first? You've got the microphone. So the microphone inside has a diaphragm. When I talk into the microphone, that moves up and down. That creates a little bit of a current, a little bit of electricity, and that goes down the wire. It comes into this device. This device then understands the analog signal, converts it into digital signal, and then your computer records that. And then once you play back the actual recording through the device, the audio interface converts that back into analog, from digital to analog, goes into your speaker. That moves the cone from the speaker, and then you can hear it. It vibrates the air and you can hear it. So that's how it works. That's kind of like the round trip the audio does through all this equipment. And it's magical because all that happens within milliseconds, right? So you don't think about it, but all that work happens within a few milliseconds, and that's called a latency, right? So hopefully that kind of clears it up for you, and I made it as easy as possible to understand. Now, let's go straight into looking here at my audio interface. And I've got here one of my audio interfaces. I got this actually as a gift with one of the software I purchased at some point, because sometimes you can buy a software and you can get an audio interface as a gift, or the other way around, you can buy the interface and you can get the software as a gift. So it's worth looking, if you want to edit the podcast yourself, it's worth looking at audio interfaces that maybe provide the software as well. So this one is from Steinberg, and they develop Cubase, one of the best audio production software, one of the best digital audio workstations. Basically, this is one of the most standard interfaces you're gonna find on the market. The Focusrite interfaces and most audio interfaces will look similar to this. So no matter what audio interface you have, it will function exactly the same. Maybe a few things here and there are a little bit different, but the basic principles that I'm gonna talk to you about today, they apply on anything. So you're gonna know how to use any audio interface no matter what. Let's look at the front panel first thing first. So what we have here, there are two microphone inputs. This is where you will input your microphones. So you'll need an XLR cable to do that. However, this particular interface has a combo jack. So what that means, you can have an XLR, or you can even plug in a jack, and I'm gonna demonstrate that to you in a few seconds. Not all audio interfaces are designed like that, but this particular one has this feature. Then we're gonna have the input gain for both channels. So that's channel 1 and then channel 2. Now this particular one, what you will perceive as a podcaster when you record, you will perceive more volume from your microphone. Now there is danger in pushing too much volume into your microphone, so putting too much gain, and then you get distortion, and you don't want to do that. Also, if that's really, really low, it's not high enough, sometimes the signal to noise ratio is not optimal. And when you're going to increase the volume of the recording into post, you may have difficulties in getting a noise-free recording. What I usually tell my clients is put this at 12 o'clock first thing first. Talk into the microphone and try to talk like you would talk to the guest. You should use the same tonality. If you tend to laugh into your recordings, if you tend to shout, you should start shouting and see if the recording will start clipping or not, because the voice is a very dynamic instrument, right? So you have to make sure that when you test your microphone, you use it exactly the same as you would normally do during the interview. Put it at 12 o'clock, talk into the microphone from the required distance as well, and then turn it down a little bit, and then look at some interfaces. They have clipping meters in there. So for example, this one has two. I'm not sure if you can see that from the camera. There's two light signals in here. So if I talk into it too loud, that's going to give me a red signal, and that means clipping. All audio interfaces have this, most of them actually. If you don't have that, you can see that on your computer. Then we've got the 48 volts, so that's called phantom power. Now, that may be confusing to some of you guys, like what the heck is phantom power? Yeah, so it's basically an extra voltage signal that gets applied once you turn something here in the back. This particular one has a 48 volts button here, and then you can turn that on and off. So what that feature is used for, certain condenser microphones, for example, they require this extra power in order for them to be driven correctly. Without that power, the condenser microphone will not work. If you use a dynamic microphone like this microphone, for example, which is a dynamic mic, you will not use that particular feature. And I would actually recommend that turning that off so you don't get any interesting behavior from your audio interface. If you use a ribbon microphone, which is a very rare type of mic, you should definitely not turn on that feature. You will blow up the mic. So a ribbon microphone will cost you maybe up to $1,000, maybe more. So I'm not sure if that's gonna be something you should be concerned about, but I'm just telling you, we've got here the output. This is the one that you kind of like need to understand what that does. So this is the output. So that's the playback of what you hear from the audio interface. from these two channels out, or which are the monitor outputs, right? So you can connect two speakers in here, and this particular knob will control that volume. Now we are gonna have here the phones, right? So the headphones. The headphones, they have a unique output in here. This one is a stereo output, and you need just one cable in order to drive a pair of headphones. This has also a lower impedance normally, depending on the audio interface, but this is dedicated for a headphone output. Some audio interfaces may have more headphone outputs. For example, this one has just one, but there's another version of this one that has two. And there's obviously other audio interfaces that have even 3 or 4. So you want to shop for one that has the required amount of headphones. And if you don't have the required amount of headphones, you can get around that by actually buying a headphone amplifier. So I'm not gonna go into headphone amplifiers in this video, but you can do that. Even though you have only one headphone out, you can put a headphone amplifier and that will help. So other features that you find here on this particular one, we've got a mix between the DAW and the input. Now this one on some audio interfaces could be actually a button instead of a mix knob. So what this does, so for example, if it's all the way to the left, I will hear what's coming into these particular channels. So I will hear the input of the microphone. So when I'm talking into the microphone, I'll be able to hear myself. When I put this one to the right, I will hear mostly what's coming out from my computer, right? So for example, my guest speaking into Riverside, for example, I will be able to hear that. If I put that in the middle, I will have a balance, 50% from here and 50% from the computer. It's better to have this kind of knob, a mix knob, because you can control the volume of those two. If you have a direct monitoring, that's how it's called on other audio interfaces. On the Focusrite, I guess it's called that way. If you have that, then obviously you will hear yourself and you won't be able to hear the guest. It depends also maybe on the Focusrite, for example. I think if you press the direct monitoring, you will still be able to hear the guest through the headphones. So it's worth checking that out. But on this particular one, I know for sure this is the behavior. This is what you would do. So a little bit of a unique feature on this one. Another feature you might want to look into is the high impedance, which is on input 2. So you can actually have this particular channel have a higher impedance, and that's useful for if you want to plug in a guitar or a bass guitar, for example, which require a high impedance for them to function correctly. Some audio interfaces may detect this automatically. You will see on some audio interfaces, for example, that you have something like mic/instrument or something like that, and those interfaces are able to detect that signal independently. Sometimes certain audio interfaces have particular channels that are designed for that purpose specifically. So it's worth checking with the manual and the specifications of your audio interface. This one has a button that turns this particular one into a high impedance channel, right? So for a podcaster, you don't really care about that really, because you won't play the guitar unless you're a musician. But yeah, that's how it is. Good. So we kind of explored everything here on the front. This will be a little bit different on each audio interface, and also the more channels you'll have, the wider the interface will be. So you could have channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all that is multiple channels, but most of those from here will be kind of like similar to audio interfaces you've seen before. Now let's look into the back of the audio interface. Now here we've got a power source, so you could actually power this audio interface with a power lead. However, this one doesn't require that. You might want to do that if you want more stability from your audio interface, or the USB cable you're using is not strong enough for it to actually power the audio interface. But this one actually can get powered by the USB cable itself, which I'm going to get into in just a moment. You've got the button here for that. Not all audio interfaces have this feature. You don't need to worry about that too much. And then we've got a USB-B connection on this particular one. However, newer models will have a USB-C connection. I'm showing this to you specifically, but I have another version of this one that has the USB-C. So the USB-C, if you know, is the one that normally plugs into your phone. That's kind of like the type of connection you would get. And manufacturers, they send multiple types of cables with an audio interface, so you're not left out without a cable. So you will normally have the cable included with the audio interface, the one that you require for your own setup, right? So this is a USB connection. And another thing about connections, some audio interfaces come with a Thunderbolt connection. These tend to be a lot more expensive because they actually solve a very specific problem for musicians especially. They have better latency. There's not as much latency in the signal, which allows for more direct response from the audio interface. Then we've got the Midi inputs in and out. The Midi inputs are normally used for connecting Midi equipment. Like for example, let's say a Midi keyboard or any type of Midi equipment you can connect through these inputs or outputs, and then you can send signal through Midi in this particular audio interface, and that gets to your computer. It's literally digital signal, is not audio signal that you actually send, and you may not need that as a podcaster at all. I can't see a case where you will need that, but audio interfaces have that, just so you know, in case. If, for example, one audio interface that has this is more expensive than another one you're looking at, you may just skip on that feature altogether. You don't need it. And then we have the monitor outputs. Sometimes these are called line outputs. These are just called maybe outputs. These are the main outputs on this audio interface. So you have a left and right. So normally you would put here a left speaker and a right speaker. Now, other interfaces may have multiple outputs, may have 4, 5, 6 outputs. So you could connect, for example, 2 speakers, but maybe you can also connect an extra pair of headphones, or you want to send the signal to another place, let's say to a secondary computer or something like that, or to your camera, for example. You can send the signal to the camera from there. So there's all sorts of other workflows you can use into your podcast production process, which outputs allow you to do that, right? So yeah, that's what the audio interface does. Now let's look into the actual cables you need for this as well. I have a few cables around. I'm going to show you. So for example, if you want to connect an XLR cable, which normally you would use that to connect a microphone, you will have it here. Just make sure that when you plug it in, it plugs all the way through. Some cables have some sort of latch in there. Be careful with that, because some cheap cables can get stuck in here and you'll never get it out. The only way maybe you'll be able to get it out if you dismantle the entire thing. So be careful with that. This one is a more expensive, it's an old cable, but I remember I bought it years ago, right? And this one comes into the mic. So same thing here, just be careful with the way this cable sits into the mic, because same thing can happen here as well, right? So the microphone is in here. Then we've got a USB cable. This one can go in the back in the port I showed you. So this one, you would normally connect this one to the computer, right? Now, if the cable you have for your computer looks like this, is a USB-A, and you have one of the newer MacBook Pros or things like that, you might want to have a USB hub, so you can plug this directly into a USB hub. You've got the headphones. The headphones, normally they would have a mini jack which looks something like this. I'm not sure if you can see that on the camera, but it's a small jack. You're familiar with this one, and you would need normally an adapter like this. So it looks something like this, and then you will convert this mini jack into a bigger jack, and then you can plug that in here. And most audio interfaces will have this type of jack connection for the headphones. You also want to make sure that the actual jack has the two stripes in here. Most of them will have that, but I'm just telling you, this is supposed to transfer stereo signal. So if you don't have that, you're not gonna get stereo. I have here one more cable. This one I just brought to show you that you can actually plug in jack cables into this connection as well, because this is an XLR connection, but it can also accept a jack connection. It's a combo connection, right? So you can have an instrument plugged into this one, or maybe you want to plug in some sort of pad machine or whatever. You can do whatever you want. This cable is an XLR, and it has a jack on the other end. Now, this may be useful if you want, for example, to plug this into your monitors, into your speakers, if you have speakers that accept this connection, and this one in the back of the interface. So you would put this one into L1. I'm just gonna show you how this looks on this side. So you can have this one in there, and this particular one will go into the speakers. Then you also got other specialized cables that you might want to consider. These ones are jacks to RCA. Some speakers will have only this type of connection in the back, which I would not recommend connecting your monitors with this kind of connection. If those normally are used on home equipment. If your speakers need this type of connection, you may get some buzz into your speakers because they are not balanced. So you might want to look for balanced cables. This one is unbalanced, and balanced cables will not give you that issue. So it's really important that you keep that in mind. Hopefully that cleared it up a little bit with the audio interface in terms of the way it gets connected and what it does. Now let's go into the software side of it, because there's a few things you need to make sure you do right, especially Windows users. I'm gonna show you how you need to connect this to a MacBook Pro, but also I'm gonna show you how to do that on a PC as well, on a Windows PC. So let's get into that. Let's go on Windows first. So what you see here is Audacity, and then if you open this window here, you're gonna have a few options. You can go directly to the audio settings from here. I will not go to this window necessarily. You can do this directly from here. So playback device. So basically what that does, you tell Audacity what interface to use in order for Audacity to send the signal to. So for example, if you have multiple interfaces, you'll have more options in here, the same I have here on my screen, but on your side you may have only one or two options. The internal audio interface from your laptop, for example, that sometimes is labeled as built-in audio or something like that, and then you also have the secondary, the external audio interface, which is in my case the Steinberg interface, right? So you would choose that, and basically what this is, Audacity will send the audio signal, the output playback signal, on the two channels at the back of the interface. So you want that selected. And then on the recording device, this is basically the place where you tell Audacity, look, listen to the two input channels into my audio interface. That's the one that I want to capture. And you can put your microphone in input 1 or 2, and then you're gonna start getting audio in Audacity. Now, it's worth mentioning on Audacity, the routing with the channels and all that, it's a little bit ambiguous. It's not as clear. So, for example, if you have a 2-channel audio interface, the left channel will be channel 1 and the right channel will be channel 2. So if you want to record two channels at the same time, you need to keep that in mind. Okay, so recording device, you choose that. And obviously here, audio settings, you have a few other things you can tweak. One is the sample rate. In dialogue production, we use 44,000, so 44,100 hertz, or we sometimes say 44 kilohertz. We just keep the 100. And then you also have the option of 48 kilohertz, which is a slightly better quality, less quantization errors and things like that. Not to go in very deep into this, but what you can do is, if you want, you can record in 48, but at the end of the day, when you upload your podcast on Spotify, on YouTube, and all these places, that gets actually dropped down to 44, which is actually CD quality. Most of the music you guys consume will be encoded at this sample rate. So it's not worth going higher than that. That normally is used for other types of productions. So in dialogue production, this is what I would have. So if you stick with one sample rate for all the projects, that's what I would recommend. Don't switch in between projects with different sample rates, because that's gonna give you issues. Another thing that you might want to look into is the sounds properties. So you can go here, press on your speaker here, and then sounds. Depending on the version of Windows, this will kind of like be slightly different. I'm still on Windows 10. I haven't upgraded because my system would become unstable if I do that. But playback, you see that I have here a few different devices, and then you can see that the one that is the default device is the Steinberg one. So you can click in here, and then you can change certain aspects of the device from this side as well. Normally you should not get into this. Normally things should just work. If you need to get into this, you might want to disconnect certain devices to not appear here, or do certain things that or more advanced, but normally just plugging in your interface would work most of the time, especially in 2025 when drivers aren't that essential anymore. Now you can download the driver for all your interfaces. So for example, if you have a Focusrite interface or whatever interface you have, you can go on the manufacturer website and then you can download the actual drivers and install those if you feel like there are some issues with the interface and it doesn't work, right? So just go on the manufacturer website, sometimes just typing the manufacturer or the interface model and download in Google, you'll find the drivers. So that's it. So hopefully that clears it up with Audacity. Let's go on the Mac version. Okay, now let me show you how you need to set up your audio interface on a Mac computer. So first thing first, what you want to do is make sure that the computer sees the audio interface and it's properly configured. So in order to do that, you want to go to System Settings. Now this option can be found in here, System Settings. You get in there. There's also other ways of getting there. For example, you can go through the applications in Finder. It's quite easy. You're probably familiar already with this window, and then type in here sound, or just find that in the list. Once you've done that, you have output and input. Output, again, same as on the Windows version, that tells your computer, look, use my audio interface as the output. And then on the input, again, use my audio interface as the input. You see that you have the built-in audio as well. So if I click on this, you can see the level of the microphone from my computer coming in. But if I have this, I don't have a microphone connected, but if I would have one connected, I would see the level on the microphone connected in the audio interface. So that's how it works in here. And then what you want to do, for example, on GarageBand, you want to go here and then preferences, and you also want to have the same settings in here. Usually if you have the settings set already into system settings on the Mac, you might have already that selected here by default. If you don't, this is how you do it. And obviously each and every digital audio workstation will work very similarly. What you need to do is find the preferences somewhere, and then in the preferences you'll find these settings somewhere into the audio section, right? So that's what you want to do. If you want to change the sample rate, there's something called Audio Midi Setup. You can find that into the Finder, so you can find it there. I have it here on my deck, on my dock, but what you can do is select the audio interface, and then you can select a different sample rate here. Another thing you might want to know is on GarageBand, you can actually select the input channels like this. So you have input 1 here, and then input 2 here on the track. So if you have more inputs on your audio interface, more inputs will actually show in here. So that means you can use this for mic 1, and then you can use this for mic 2. So that's how it works. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. You kind of like understand now what an audio interface is, and you know how to use it in your podcast setup. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it useful, again, subscribe to this channel. It really helps with the algorithm picking up all the signals that we are a great resource for podcasters, and also hit the like button as well. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.